Welcome to Order Militaris Catholicus YouTube channel. And my name is Brother Alexis Bugnolo. I am one of the co-founders, and I am broadcasting from the commandery of the Order here in Warsaw, Poland, which we have opened to support Ukraine and Ukrainian refugees. Now, it often happens that a small organization like ours never really knows anything of the opposition because, well, we're far away, we're involved in mostly social media, and we don't have boots on the ground yet. And so we go obliviously through the history of time, and maybe we'll get some people on social media that will comment differently, trolls and things like that. But rarely has our organization ever been targeted by anyone. I think in 2018, one radical in Turkish, threatened us with cutting our heads off, but after an FBI complaint, Twitter took that tweet down. They wouldn't do it without an FBI complaint, but they did it after one. Just yesterday, the U.S. Office for NATO in Europe issued a monitum, a warning, that Russia, to defend itself on social media, was going to start infiltrating computers and attacking individuals and even businesses. And it seems that Russia has targeted, in particular, Twitter. Main accounts that were featuring information that was pro-Ukrainian have been suspended by Twitter. And Twitter doesn't seem to be realizing that the complaints, which are being issued by automated programs using the complaint feature, flagging a tweet, are deploying their system. Maybe Twitter doesn't care. I kind of think Twitter doesn't care, and because Twitter is owned by BlackRock and Vanguard, which are owned by the Skull and Bone Banks of New York, which are fronts for the Rothschilds. And all those organizations supported the Bolshevik Revolution, and so they're 100% behind Putin and everything he represents. Though it may not appear that to you, because these kind of people would much more willingly prefer to economically support and exploit a nation and enslave its people through an autocracy of the kind that Putin runs than through a democracy of the kind which Biden is trying to tear down. And so I think Twitter knows exactly what it's doing and is just letting the Russians do it so that they can keep their hands clean. Twitter is also involved in a fight with Elon Musk, who is an ally of the Ukraine. So it would imply the board of directors, maybe out of spite, is going to allow the Russians to attack pro-Ukrainian accounts. Well, our main promotional account for our order, Militaris Cath, MILITARISCATH, was attacked by Russian bots just hours ago. And they did it at an hour of the day. They thought that our order would be asleep, but our volunteers were awake and were at the keyboard live as it happened. And 6 complaints within 90 minutes were, or maybe about 220 minutes, were filed against our main account. 6 suspensions were issued by Twitter. The first 3 for 1 minute, and the next one for 12 hours, and the subsequent 2 don't seem to have added any more hourage on that. The Russian complaint bots seem to have penetrated Twitter's archive, because 2 of the tweets that were flagged as suspended were already suspended years ago and erased by our main account. So how can you be suspended for a tweet that was erased years ago? None of them really violated Twitter's policy, because none of them advocated violence. A few used metaphors that are found in Scripture that we Christians don't use to imply actual physical violence, but moral violence. And some were merely just citations of news or recountings of history. which did not imply violence at all, unless you mean it's the violence of the people who perpetrated the crime. But to say that someone murdered someone isn't an advocacy of murder, especially when it is said in the context of lamentation of the crime or deprecation of the crime. Deprecation means to speak badly of. So our main promotional account was suspended for 12 hours, and we filed appeal. Twitter might suspend our main promotional account forever. It's been on there 5.5 years. It has over 100,000 tweets. It's already been suspended 5 times for a week or more. The last major suspension was in 2018, and about 6 weeks after, Twitter wrote our organization saying, "Oh, we made a mistake. We shouldn't have suspended you." Yeah, you made a mistake because we threatened you with a lawsuit if you did. And a year later, we revived it, and no suspension was issued. Evidently, Twitter management was realizing, hey, the legal department was reminding them, wait, we have a letter from these people. So Russia thinks it's going to silence our organization, and Russia thinks by attacking our Twitter account, they've really inflicted a wound on us. In actual fact, though we have our publicity has been done mostly on Twitter, we're not dependent on Twitter. However, this means now that our order needs to mobilize all our other means of support. And if Russia is going to attack us before we have a boot on the ground, well, let's get some boots on the ground and let them have it back, So this should be a call to action, and it certainly doesn't frighten myself or the other co-founder, AJ Bauman, who has the blood of Charlemagne, most of the nobility of Europe in him. And I'm a fighting Franciscan, I'm a militant Franciscan, so it doesn't affect me. But I'm making a call out to all our benefactors, supporters, investors. We've been at 6 years, AJ and I, encouraging recruits, encouraging investors, encouraging donors, pledges, selling all kinds of little things like flags and stuff. We want to get more serious about this, and we need a more serious support. So I hope that the fact that Russian information warfare has actually targeted our order as a sign of approval that we're doing the right thing. There's a lot of groups out there that never attack. Now, why is that? I think one of the reasons, too, why our order is hated so much is we believe in an actual restoration of Christendom. We're not interested in defending Ukraine because we're supporting some globalist network, and not because of a territory called Ukraine, but because Ukraine is a Christian nation and has some really admirable Christians in it. As a matter of fact, our main account pointed that out just a few hours before it was suspended, that the Ukrainian Orthodox Metropolitan of Kiev, he's like their de facto patriarch, said that on the vigil of Easter, because they celebrate Easter according to the Julian calendar, so this Saturday night begins the vigil, he is going to organize a procession to Mariupol to rescue people trapped in the city and to get them out. And he's a monk, like myself, and he's had a long career showing that he's quite a feisty guy, and he seems to be a really deeply convicted Christian. And he's going to organize this peace procession to get the victims out. So our main account tweeted out to him, "May the holy archangels watch over you and the light of Christ go before you," because that's an act of true Christianity. The Orthodox are in communion with us Catholics, but when you see that level of virtue, you have to praise it for wherever it comes from. And I have to say that if I was in Orkiv, where the procession was going to begin from, I would join the Metropolitan myself in person and go with him, because I think when you put your faith in Christ that much, you cannot be defeated. Whether it comes life or death, or whether you succeed or you're slaughtered mercilessly by the Russians, you're giving a great testimony to Christ. And so I ask you prayers for him and all participate in that attempt to free the last remaining tens of thousands of citizens of Mariupol before they're utterly genocided by the Russian forces. But in the meantime, I would encourage those Catholics out there and those Christians who really want an organization like ours that are out to restore Christendom, to defend Christian families. I don't think there's an organization in the world dedicated like ours to defending Christian families with arms. Now, maybe there is. I don't know all of them out there. We've always tried to reach out to more people. I even was going to place an ad in the Stars and Stripes, which is was the most popular printed magazine in the U.S. military. We were refused, and the editor's department said to me, "We can't take your ad because your organization discriminates." I go, "Discriminates? What do you mean?" He says, "You're dedicated to defending Christians. That's discriminatory." I said, "How's that discriminatory?" "Because you should be dedicated to defending everyone." See how the game plays? It's a nice little Masonic game. Yes, but if we were dedicated to defending everyone, according to you, that would probably mean we couldn't defend Christians. You see, this is the game being played. So we're not a Masonic organization. And so I said, "Oh Lord, that magazine deserves to be punished for discriminating against us." And they went bankrupt. Now they're not a print magazine anymore. They just have an electronic version. So that was wonderful. And God hears your prayers. So I am praying the Lord that He sends us benefactors and supporters and investors and members. There's all different ways you can help, and I'll put them in the show notes. But we have to get real now. We can't, Christians have been lamenting for 200 years that Christianity is decaying in the West. And what are we doing about it other than lamenting? And just as you don't have any liberty unless someone liberates you, you're not going to get your rights back unless you start supporting security and defense issues. Because it's the soldiers who give us civil liberty. It's not voters. You first have to have a government. You first have to break free from chains, and that only happens through soldiers. And that's why we are supporting the military defense of the Ukraine, because those Christians won't have liberty if they're conquered by Russia and become subject to an autocratic state where you have a dictator and Jewish oligarchs running the whole thing. And one's dedicated to the hatred of Christianity. And so this is an invitation. It's a calling. I take it as a badge that the Russian intelligence agencies have attacked our Orders Twitter account. They think they scratched the surface, going to scare us. No, we're lions. You just made us more committed to the fight. But we can't do anything without you. And in Europe, we're trying to organize a training camp this summer for up to 50 young men to train in a platoon so that they can fight in the Ukraine and get NATO-grade training with military trainers who are French veterans of the French Foreign Legion or Special Forces. And so it's going to be much better training than most of the armed forces in the Ukraine, because most are not regular army. Most are just National Guard or territorial defense. Our men will get better training than that. And of course, they'll get Christian training under the banner of Our Lady. Here's our order, his flag here. And this is actually our unit's flag for the Ukraine, because it's our order's flag joined together with the flag of Ukraine, because when we wouldn't be into Ukraine for any other reason but to help them. So it's only fitting that we merged our order's symbol with that nation's flag. So all the different ways you can have, if you just want to help us a little, pledge as a member of the order. It's only $8.50 a month. You can do it with a credit card. And that is or you can make a one-time small donation. And that's the way that many people, don't be ashamed if that's all you can do. Because we've got 10,000 people pledging $8.50 a month. We could run most of our operations, okay? I'd like to open a commandery in Kiev so that we could handle relations with the Ukrainian government, and so we could offer services in Kiev. We have a humanitarian effort fund, and I have mentioned that in a previous video, but we've raised about $3,500 now. That's really not much. We raised $15,000 for the victims of the bombing of Beirut. Well, it's not the bombing, it was the port exploded. And so I know this probably because Lebanese are very generous and they are businessmen, so they're more financially, but only 3,500 for Ukrainians. What I would like to do is open up a house for Ukrainian refugees. You can't do it with 3,500. But in Kiev, we could open up a house for all those elderly people who've lost their homes because the Russians blew them up. Where are all those old ladies and old men who don't have any children or family anymore, who are half blind or invalid, where are they going to live? And I'd love to be able to have enough in the humanitarian fund to rent an apartment building and say to dozens of the elderly, here's a place you can stay. Heat, water, rent is all paid. All you have to worry about is your food, and if you need help for that, we'll help you. Because how are they going to bear this shock? It's psychological. There's a blind woman living in a house that has no roof and windows anymore because the war blew them off. She doesn't realize that. And when the soldiers visit her, she tells them, shut the door because it's cold. Now, maybe she's no longer in that house, but I wouldn't be able to suffer to let an old lady live in such a house. I'd immediately do something. But as much as I or AJ want to help, and as much as we could help by training men to help, we can't do any of this without you, because he's an invalid, homebound, and I'm a friar. Gave all my wealth to the poor years ago when I became a friar. So we can't do anything without you. So Our Lady has goodwill. I explained in the last video. She wants to help her children. Here we are in the flesh, AJ and I. We want to join with Our Lady. We need the investment. So I'm working on trying to open a cryptocurrency account for the order. That's not going too well. There's so many problems in that. But for now, you can give donations via PayPal using a credit card or a PayPal account. And that we really need. I also need here in Warsaw men volunteers. I can't do everything. As you can see, I'm not young anymore. And I don't have the physical force of a young man. There's so many things that need to be done. Our commandery is in an excellent spot in Warsaw where we can do everything logistically and legally that we need to do. But there's going to be a massive work this summer if we open up a training camp. I need a cook. I need a janitor. I need assistants for the trainers. I need drivers. I came to Europe without getting an international driver's license. So I have a US driver's license, but I can't drive in Europe because I didn't spend 15 minutes at the AAA office. They won't let me drive in Europe. So it would cost me like $5,000 to fly back to the States, get my thing, and it's a lot easier if a volunteer comes who got his international driver's certification with his driver's license. We need drivers. And we need the funds so that we can lease some vehicles, rent a training camp, all kinds of things like that. And I want to thank the donor from Texas who donated a military kit. I have it right over here that we're working on it. And some people don't believe it, so I'll show you one thing of that. Because I'd like to give the graduates who have the best scores in our training school a free military pack, which is not, and by military pack we don't mean weapons, we mean defensive things. So we purchased actually one military pack already because we had to, as an organization, learn about logistics, supplies, and qualities. And here is a level 3 tactical military helmet, and this cost, I forget how much it was. I think it was about $250, and it doesn't fit on my head, but I'll show you what it kind of looks like if it's on a head. See, it has to be adjusted to fit on the skull, and it can adjust, but I'm not going to adjust it me because I'm a friar. I don't need a helmet because I don't go into war into a war zone. At least it's my health. I could go into a war zone. Otherwise, I keep my head down and trust in the archangels. But for soldiers, they need these things. And we have the clothing, everything but the boots and gloves, because that really has to be bought to fit a guy. And we have the rigging and everything. So that costs about $2,000 just to buy one sample to see what the suppliers in the local area are and how much they cost and stuff. And these are some of the things they do. So in addition to volunteers. So that's investors. I'd like to open a branch of our American PMC in Poland or in the Ukraine, and that would cost thousands of dollars. So I'm not even going to contemplate it. But if there's an investor out there and you really want to do a good thing, and that would really help us, and we could do a lot more with that kind of investment. And you can invest through our American corporation because it is a stock corporation, can sell stock, and it has $5 million worth of shares set aside for foreign operations, which is our T class stock. And it's a much better investment than Twitter or things of that kind. So these are the ways you can help. And we are selling a Lepanto flag. Let me show you our Lepanto flag. You know that if you've been following our order for some years, you know that we sell a Lepanto flag. And it was designed in the winter of 2017. We sold it in 2018, or maybe it was 2016, 2017, and we raised a fair amount of money. And most of our operating expenses are paid by the sale of this flag. But this year, we're offering it in exchange for a donation to help Ukraine. And the reason for that is that the electronic artist to whom I gave the images from the Spanish Museum of the original Lepanto flag that was flown in 1571, and who put it in an electronic format so that now that we can apply that image to flags, cups, shirts, any surface it can be printed on. She was an electronic artist from Chernihiv, just outside Chernihiv, and her city was utterly destroyed. And I think 1/5 of the citizens were massacred. There's 900 graves in that town. And I don't know if she's alive. If anyone sees this flag at Chernihiv, you tell me if she's alive or not. And this is one thing I want to do. I want to go to Chernihiv and look her up. So this year, when we're selling this flag, it won't go for our operation expenses in the United States. It will go for our humanitarian effort in the Ukraine. And the 100 for a donation of 125, we'll send you one of these flags. U.S. addresses only because the mailing and the shipping, and there's tariffs on printed goods, so we can't ship it. But if you're curious, this flag is made in Poland. Okay, so it's not made in China. And the Poles are excellent flag companies. We got our flags here. And that's another way of helping the order. Finally, recruits. If you're 18 to 35 in good health, good eyes, not injured by recent medical experiments, I'll say that much so that this video can make it on YouTube, consider serving with us, coming in, training in our camp this summer. It's a 4-month course. It's only $1,000 a month, and you have to put a deposit down for your health checkup and background checkup. I'll put a link to explaining that. And this is a great way to leave aside mediocre Christianity, Catholicism, and set us on the path of heroism towards the whole of the saints and martyrs. Because if one risks his life to help Christians who are being persecuted, there is no way you can lose. You either will liberate them and come back victorious and have that honor on you for the rest of your life, or you will make the supreme sacrifice and go straight to the throne of heaven, of Jesus Christ in heaven, and there be empowered by the grace of God to help all your friends, family, and relatives, interceding for them like the holy angels of God do, in a way and beyond anything you could possibly do in this life. And so a lot of people say, well, you're involved in the military order, brother, you're a friar. I'm here to get people to heaven. And some will get to heaven by, putting on the habit of a friar and living a perfect holy life and saying lots of prayers and stuff. Others get to heaven by charity, by the perfection of charity, and that's how soldiers get to heaven. And they can sometimes, if they do it for the right reasons, they can get there a lot quicker and get to a higher place than we friars who, don't really risk much becoming a friar. I mean, some people find it as a burden, but, so that's the other. But we can't recruit men, unless you get the word out. Okay, so we put the message out on Reddit, and Reddit suspended our volunteer within a week because Reddit is just Marxist. And we did get some contacts, and young men are contacting us, but we need to get the word out to more. I'd like to have a full class, and we can't do that without you. So this is a one way for a young guy who's rough, but he's a believer and he wants to be a saint. And it's a lot easier to be a saint as a soldier. People think this, I'm going to crazy. It's a lot easier because all you have to do is risk your life for the love of your neighbor. And if you do that, and God should accept your sacrifice, you go straight to the throne of heaven. I mean, that's the absolutely easiest way. If I was in good health, I would, and wasn't a friar, I'd be right up there. But I wouldn't meet the health requirements. You have to be able to run 2 kilometers in under 30 minutes. I personally couldn't even, I couldn't get down the first 100 meters. I've never had that good health. So it's not, if you're in good health, it's a great way to go, and a great way to serve God. And actually with all the modern defense systems and medical systems, the risk of death is not as great as people think. But for us, death is not the end. It is the beginning of glory. And some of us have to spend years wearing the habit and enduring all the sufferings of death, expiate our sins, and others are much more blessed and go straight there. But we can't get the word out unless people share the word. So this is our main social media account is suspended. We need you guys to speak, you guys and gals, to get the word out. And I thank you for all the help for that. And please consider being a more intense supporter of our order, member, investor, benefactor, donor, promoter, or volunteer, because the war is on, and we need to mobilize. God bless. Ave Maria and Deus Vult.